With summertime in full swing, the last thing I want to do is go in my kitchen and cook over a hot stove. So for this video, we are focusing on budget-friendly crockpot recipes. These are super simple and so delicious. First recipe, we are making black pepper steak, and I got about 1.5 pounds of flank steak. My store only had fajita season, but this flavor blended perfectly. I was kind of worried about it at first, but it actually turned out really well for this. This meat already comes into strips, but I just went ahead and chopped mine down into smaller bite-sized pieces just to make it go a little bit farther. I feel like the meal lasts longer when you do that. Once I got that done, I started chopping up my green bell pepper, my red bell pepper, and my onion. And I chopped up my bell peppers into just bite-sized chunks. And then for my onion, I did use 2 small ones because they were so little. And I just sliced those, and then I sliced the slices in half so they wouldn't be super long. And then next I'm going to start on my sauce. So I've got a 1/2 cup of soy sauce, a 1/2 cup of beef broth, as well as a teaspoon of ground ginger. I'm going to give that a quick stir so that will disperse in evenly. And then next I'm going to do a teaspoon of minced garlic, a teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce, and I also did about 1.5 tablespoons of brown sugar. I'm going to add in almost a full teaspoon of black pepper. You can adjust this accordingly to your taste. Have kids that, don't like pepper, or you even don't like pepper, then I would cut this down because it is a little peppery. So you can just kind of do that to your taste. You can always taste test it. But then I'm going to add in my meat and vegetables now. Once I get those added in, I did remember that I forgot to add in my cornstarch or flour. I'm actually going to use cornstarch for this, but you can use whichever one you want. So I just pulled all of my meat over to the side and let my sauce run over to the other side. And I just threw in a couple tablespoons of cornstarch, and then I'm just going to whisk that up and mix it in. And then I'm going to stir everything back together. You can always add your flour or cornstarch later if you want towards the end, and just pull out some of the sauce and add it into it and stir it up and then throw it back in. It's just up to you on preference on how you want to do that. But once I get that done and I kind of mix everything back together and pat the meat down a little bit into the liquid, I covered it up and let it cook, and I seen once it was finished it was still a little too runny, so I went ahead and added some more cornstarch and stirred it up. This was so good and so simple. I cooked some rice in my rice cooker, served it over some white rice. This was so good. It didn't give us a ton of leftovers, but it definitely filled us up, and it gave us like a bowl for the next day. So you could always double the veggies if you didn't want to double the meat and make it go longer. Our next recipe is crockpot smoked sausage and potatoes. This was so good. So I took 6 potatoes and I cubed those up into squares. I did peel my potatoes first, and then once I got done with those, I went ahead and started working on my smoked sausage. So I have 2 packages here, and I just chopped those up into thin little coins. If you wanted to do yours thicker, feel free to do that. I just wanted to make my smoked sausage go a little bit farther. So I chopped those up into thin coins, and once I got that done, I went over to my crock pot and I just started throwing everything in that. This would be really good with a diced onion in it as well, but I did not add one of those in. But I went ahead and started adding in my beef broth. So I'm doing 2 cups, but I did do an extra bouillon cube just to give it a little bit of a deeper beef flavor since we have a lot of potatoes. I also am going to add in 1 can of cream of mushroom soup, and then I'm also going to do 2 teaspoons of smoked paprika. You can use regular if you want, but the smoked really gives it a good flavor. I also added in a teaspoon of onion powder, and then I'm going to do about 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. Now, if you wanted to, you could take your smoked sausage and throw it in a skillet and get some brown on it, and also add in some minced garlic instead of garlic powder. But I'm just doing it the quick and easy way today, just so I can dump everything in and get this cooking. And so I'm going to just stir this up really well, and then that's it. I'm going to cover this up and let it cook. And then towards the last 30 minutes, I'm going to add in some chopped broccoli. This is optional, you don't have to do that. I just wanted to get a vegetable in there, so once I get that in there, I'm going to stir it around and let it cook for about 30 minutes, just depending on how you want yours done. And then once that's finished, I'm just going to add some sharp shredded cheddar cheese. I just dumped some in there and mixed it up, and I let that melt. And then that's it. This is done and it is ready to serve. This was so good and it was so simple. My family absolutely loved it. It was a good comforting meal, and it definitely gave my family a 4 leftovers, so I really liked that. Next, we are making chicken pot pie biscuits in the crock pot. So I've got about 1.5 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken thighs, and I'm just going to season this to our taste. I'm going to be using onion powder, and then I'm also going to go in with some caramelized onion butter by Kinder, but I'm not going to use a whole lot of that. And then I'm going to also use poultry seasoning, and then some Kinder's grilled chicken seasoning, as well as some parsley flakes. Another season that would be really good in this would be Mrs. Dash, but I actually ran out of mine, so I didn't have any. But once I get that done, I'm going to flip my chicken over, and I'm just going to season both sides of this, and then we're going to start adding in our other ingredients. I will say this recipe did not give us a ton of leftovers, so if you want more leftovers, a cheap way to do that would be to go ahead and add in some potatoes to this. Potatoes would be really good in it, or you could double the vegetables. But if you do that, you may need to add some more of the cream of chicken soup and chicken broth, which we're going to add. So I'm doing, for this recipe, 1/2 cup of chicken broth, and then I'm going to do 1 can of cream of chicken soup. I'm also adding in 1 bag of frozen mixed vegetables. This is just your standard size bag. So like I said, if you want more leftovers, you can go ahead and just double that. But I'm just going to give this a little bit of a stir and try to mix everything down in the liquid. And then I'm going to cover this up and let it cook until my chicken is done. And I'm going to pull my chicken out and I'm going to cube mine up. But if you would rather shred yours, that's fine too. I just prefer mine into chunks. If you did decide to shred it, you wouldn't even have to pull it out. You could just shred it up with 2 forks inside the crock pot if you wanted to do it that way. Once I get all of that cut up the way I want it, I'm going to throw it back into my crock pot, and then I'm going to mix it up. And I need to thicken this because it's really runny, so I just did a couple tablespoons of cornstarch to this. You can use flour if you want, it doesn't matter. But just add a couple tablespoons of that until you get it thick the way you want it. You could also do this in the beginning if you wanted to, but I just waited to the end to see how thick I needed to make it. And then I got my can of refrigerated biscuits, and this has 8 biscuits in it, but my crock pot only held 6, so I cooked the other 2 in the oven. But you can cook all of them in the oven if you want, but these actually cooked up really nice in the crock pot. So I just layered my biscuits right on top. Really, if I squished them around, I might have been able to fit all 8, but I didn't want them to be doughy and not cook evenly. So I only did 6. And then once those were done, this was ready to serve. This was so good and it was so simple. My family loved this recipe. Lastly, we are making Crockpot Meatball Pot Roast. This is an alternative to regular pot roast because beef is so high right now. So I've got 2 cups of beef broth, and then I'm going to throw in some baby carrots. I just washed those and threw them in. I didn't cut them down any smaller. I also have a 32-ounce bag of frozen home-style meatballs, and then I threw those in there, as well as a little bit of chopped onion. That's optional. You don't have to do that if you don't want. I took a spoon and pressed my meatballs down into the liquid line to let them get covered as much as possible, but some are going to stick up. And then I went in with just a little bit of Montreal steak seasoning as well as onion powder. I gave that a quick stir, and then I pressed them back down. And then I just covered this up and I let it cook on high for about 4 to 5 hours. Once that finished up, I did go ahead and pull some of that broth out and thicken it with brown gravy mix, and I mixed it in a separate bowl so it would mix smooth. But if you want to put this in the beginning, you can do that as well. Once this is thickened up, that's it. This is ready to serve. I served this over mashed potatoes and this was so good. Thank you all for watching and enjoy. Bye!